Welcome, weary traveler, to another quiet journey into the annals of time. Tonight, as the world outside settles into its own gentle rhythm, we invite you to drift back, far back, to an empire of stone and iron, of power and dust. Ancient Rome, forget, for a moment, the rush of your modern day, the incessant demands, the bright, artificial lights. Here, in the soft glow of our shared historical reverie, we will explore a life utterly removed from your own. A life both starkly different and, in its essence, profoundly human. Imagine yourself, if you will, standing at the precipice of a vast chasm of centuries, looking down upon the formidable might of the Roman Empire. We will not rush this journey. Instead, we will allow the currents of history to carry us slowly, gently, through the daily routines, the grand ambitions, the silent secrets, and the vibrant lives that once shaped this ancient world. Our aim, as always, is not to excite, but to soothe, not to stimulate, but to allow your mind to wander, to explore, and perhaps, eventually, to surrender to the quiet embrace of sleep. Tonight, our focus begins where the empire's true strength lay, in the hands and the hardened spirit of its legionaries. We will delve into a reality far removed from the romanticized images of grand conquests and triumphant parades. We will explore the unvarnished truth of what it meant to be a soldier of Rome, a life of relentless discipline, of constant movement, and of an ever-present proximity to hardship, and often a swift end. So, settle in, close your eyes if you wish, and allow the steady cadence of history to wash over you. To truly comprehend the might of Rome, one must first understand the foundation upon which it was built. The Roman legionary. These were not simply soldiers. They were the embodiment of Roman discipline, engineering prowess, and unyielding will. But before a man could stand shoulder to shoulder in the formidable testudo formation, before he could raise his gladius in battle, he first had to endure a crucible of training. A regimen designed not merely to teach skills, but to utterly transform the individual. Imagine yourself, a young man, perhaps from a quiet village or a bustling city, leaving behind the familiar comforts of home, however meager. You have taken the oath, the sacramentum, binding you to the eagles of Rome for 25 long years. Your journey begins not with a grand battle, but with the relentless repetition of physical exertion and the stark realization of your own previous softness. The primary mode of Roman movement, the very heartbeat of their logistical power, was the march. And for a legionary, marching was not merely walking. It was an art, a science, and an endurance test. You would be expected to cover, often, 20 Roman miles in 5 hours. That's roughly 18 modern miles, all while carrying an astonishing 60 to 80 pounds of equipment. Picture, if you will, the weight of your sarsena, your personal pack, pressing into your shoulders. Within it, not just your armor and weapons, but your personal effects, your digging tools, your cooking pot, your rations for several days. Each step a deliberate effort, each mile a testament to your burgeoning stamina. This wasn't a stroll through the countryside. This was often across uneven terrain, through the heat of summer or the chilling damp of winter. Your caligae, the studied boots, would offer some grip, but the incessant pounding on the ground, day after day, would leave your feet aching, blistered, and hardened. The rhythm of the march would become an almost hypnotic drone, the soft thud of hundreds, perhaps thousands, of boots in unison, the creak of leather, the jingle of equipment. Your breath would find its own steady cadence, adapting to the sustained effort. But marching was only one aspect of this brutal education. Every halt, every evening, brought another fundamental task: the construction of the marching camp. This was not a leisure activity. It was an immediate necessity, a protective shell against an unpredictable world. Each legionary was a highly skilled, mobile engineer. Your first duty upon arrival, even before resting your weary limbs, would be to unpack your tools. The delabra, a pickaxe and shovel combination, would become an extension of your arm. Imagine the organized chaos, the synchronized effort. Thousands of men simultaneously digging the V-shaped ditch, the fossa, around the perimeter. The earth, thick with the scent of damp soil, would be turned over, spade by spade. Then the raised embankment, the agger, built up from the excavated earth, reinforced with wooden stakes. The valley, which you, yourself, would have carried as part of your burdensome pack. This entire operation, the transformation of an open field into a fortified encampment, could be completed in a matter of hours, a testament to the Legion's collective efficiency and relentless discipline. The very air would be thick with the sounds of digging, the rhythmic striking of wood, the shouted commands of the centurions, and the steady, focused grunts of exertion. The monotony extended beyond the march and the camp building. Guard duty, often a cold, solitary vigil in the dead of night, was a constant reality. Standing motionless, peering into the inky blackness beyond the camp's defenses, your senses acutely attuned to every rustle, every distant sound. The weight of your larica segmentata, the segmented plate armor, would become a familiar burden, its metal plates shifting and clinking with every slight adjustment of your posture. After hours, the cold seeping into your bones, the silence broken only by the chirping of crickets or the distant howl of an animal. Your mind might wander, perhaps to home, perhaps to the warmth of a fire, but always the ever-present demand for vigilance, for absolute readiness. And what of their daily sustenance, the fuel for this ceaseless exertion? The rations of a Roman legionary were, by modern standards, incredibly meager and monotonous. The staple was grain, usually wheat or barley, which they would grind themselves, often into a coarse flour, to make pulls, a simple porridge, or hardtack biscuits. Imagine the gritty texture, the bland taste, consumed day after day. Occasionally, if fortunate, some dried meat or salted fish might supplement the diet, along with olives, cheese, or vegetables gathered along the route. Water, often collected from streams or wells, would be their primary beverage, its quality varying wildly, a constant threat of disease. This brings us to one of the most pervasive, yet often unspoken, threats to a Roman legionary: disease. Far more men succumbed to illness than to enemy swords. Dysentery, malaria, typhoid, and countless other ailments swept through the close-knit ranks, thriving in the often sanitary conditions of marching camps and crowded garrisons. Imagine the constant struggle with digestive issues, the feverish chills, the debilitating weakness, all while still being expected to perform your duties. The body, constantly under strain from physical exertion and poor nutrition, offered a welcoming host to pathogens. The field medic, the medicus, would do his best with rudimentary knowledge and limited supplies. But often, the most effective treatment was simply time, and for many, time ran out. And then, of course, there was combat, the ultimate crucible, the very reason for their existence. The gladius, a short, thrusting sword would feel surprisingly light in the hand after hours of training, its balance honed for close quarters fighting. The scutum, the large rectangular shield, a heavy but essential piece of protection, emblazoned with the legion's insignia. Imagine the thunderous impact of thousands of disciplined men moving forward, shields interlocked, a living, breathing wall of iron and muscle. The cacophony of battle, the shouts, the clash of steel, the screams of the wounded. This was the ultimate test of their training, their discipline, their will to survive. Yet, even in victory, the shadow of potential injury, of a brutal, painful end, always lingered. How did they manage hygiene in such an environment? This was a constant challenge, and often a losing battle. While larger permanent camps and cities had public bathhouses on campaign, hygiene was rudimentary. Ablutions would be performed in rivers or streams, often shared with livestock, and sanitation in temporary camps was basic, relying on latrine trenches. The legionary's uniform, though designed for durability, would become impregnated with sweat, dirt, and the dust of the road. Parasites, both internal and external, were a common affliction. The constant itching, the discomfort, a subtle but persistent irritant in their daily lives. The very air of the camp, especially after a long march, would carry the faint, earthy scent of unwashed bodies, of damp leather, and of cooking fires. So, when we consider the Roman legionary, we must look beyond the gleaming armor and the victorious marches. We must peer into the relentless physical demands, the mind-numbing monotony of their routines, the constant shadow of disease, and the ever-present possibility of a brutal death on a distant battlefield. Their lives were a testament to human endurance, to the power of collective discipline, and to the stark, unromanticized reality of empire building. It was a life of constant struggle, a relentless push against the elements, against the enemy, and often against their own physical limits. A day in their shoes would likely test the very limits of modern endurance, a stark reminder of the fundamental differences between our comfortable present and their unforgiving past. From the dust and disciplined toil of the Roman legionary's life, we now ascend to the gilded, yet increasingly volatile heights of Roman power. Our gaze turns towards the opulent chambers of the imperial palace on the Palatine Hill, towards a figure whose name, even millennia later, evokes a complex tapestry of artistic ambition, megalomania, and chilling cruelty. Emperor Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, his reign, spanning from 54 to 68 CE, remains one of the most debated, documented, and dramatically unsettling periods in Roman history, a testament to the intoxicating and often corrupting influence of absolute power. Nero, born Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus, arrived into a world steeped in imperial intrigue. He was the son of Gnaeus Domitius Ahenobarbus and Agrippina the Younger, a woman of formidable ambition and cunning, who was also the great-granddaughter of Emperor Augustus himself. After his father's death, Agrippina shrewdly maneuvered her son into adoption by her uncle, the Emperor Claudius, through a series of ruthless political machinations, including Claudius's sudden death. Young Nero, at the tender age of 16, was thrust onto the imperial stage. Initially, his rule showed promise. The young emperor was guided by a triumvirate of wise counsel. His mother, Agrippina, who initially wielded immense behind-the-scenes power, the distinguished Stoic philosopher and dramatist, Lucius Annaeus Seneca the Younger, who served as his tutor and advisor. and the pragmatic and respected Praetorian prefect Sextus Afranius Burrus, commander of the emperor's elite guard. For a precious few years, often referred to as the Quinquennium Neronis, the 5 years of Nero, Rome experienced a period of relatively stable, efficient, and outwardly just governance. Seneca's influence steered Nero towards moderation, and Burrus ensured administrative competence. It seemed, for a brief time, that Rome might have a benevolent and enlightened ruler. Yet, beneath this veneer of competent governance, a different character was slowly, inexorably emerging. Nero possessed a profound, almost obsessive, passion for the arts, music, poetry, acting, and chariot racing. He truly yearned to be celebrated not as a warrior or a statesman, which were the traditional Roman virtues of an emperor, but as a virtuoso, a performer of unparalleled talent. Imagine an emperor, the absolute ruler of the known world, dedicating vast amounts of time to singing lessons, acting rehearsals, and the meticulous practice of playing the lyre, a stringed instrument akin to a small harp. He even competed publicly, taking to the stage not in a ceremonial capacity, but as a genuine competitor, singing his own compositions before a captivated and undoubtedly terrified or sycophantic audience. He established the Neronia, a grand festival in 60 CE featuring musical, poetic, and athletic competitions in which he eagerly participated, often winning the prizes through less than fair means. This artistic inclination, while seemingly benign, gradually clashed violently with the stern expectations of Roman aristocratic society, which viewed such public displays by an emperor, particularly acting and singing, as undignified, scandalous, and utterly beneath the majesty of the imperial office. The whispers of disapproval would have grown, a quiet chorus of elite discomfort. His personal life, too, became increasingly turbulent and marked by ruthless ambition and a growing disregard for traditional Roman morality. His relationship with his domineering mother, Agrippina, grew increasingly poisonous as he sought to shake off her controlling influence. The narratives, preserved by ancient historians such as Tacitus and Suetonius, speak of her insidious attempts to maintain power and his cold, calculating responses. Imagine the subtle, then increasingly overt, power struggles within the imperial court, the intricate web of whispers, spies, and shifting loyalties as a mother and son, both formidable in their own right, vied for ultimate control. Nero's first step was to remove her allies, then to remove her from the palace. The climax of this struggle was tragic and brutal. Nero orchestrated Agrippina's murder in 59 CE after a failed attempt to drown her in a specially designed collapsible boat. Her death, achieved by a sword in her villa, was an act that shocked even the hardened Roman elite and signaled a disturbing descent into moral depravity and unchecked power. Seneca, though horrified, provided the public justification for the murder, a stain on his own philosophical reputation. The passing of Burrus in 62 CE, followed by Seneca's increasingly uncomfortable withdrawal from court, left Nero increasingly free from moderating influences. His character seemed to harden, his artistic vanity swelling into an almost pathological self-indulgence, and his paranoia beginning to take root. He divorced and exiled his first wife, Octavia, Claudius's daughter, a popular figure, and later had her executed. He then married Poppaea Sabina, a beautiful and ambitious woman who was said to have encouraged his excesses. Then came the catastrophic event that would forever be associated with his name, the Great Fire of Rome. In July of 64 CE, a devastating blaze erupted in the shops around the Circus Maximus, quickly spreading through the densely populated, labyrinthian wooden districts of the city. For 6 agonizing days and 7 nights, Rome burned with a terrifying, unrelenting intensity, consuming vast swaths of the ancient capital, leaving countless dead, injured, and homeless. Imagine the orange glow illuminating the night sky from miles around, casting an apocalyptic pallor over the landscape. The acrid smell of smoke, burning timber, and human despair would have choked the air. The frantic screams of the terrified populace, trapped by the inferno, their world quite literally consumed by flames, would have been an unforgettable sound. While some ancient sources, particularly the later Christian writers, like Lecantus, famously accused Nero of setting the fire himself, even playing his lyre, or singing an epic poem about the fall of Troy while the city burned, this sensationalized account is widely disputed by modern historians. It is more likely that the fire was accidental, a tragically common occurrence in a city built largely of wood and packed tightly with structures, especially during the dry summer months. However, Nero's response to the disaster was met with mixed reactions and certainly fueled the rumors. He organized extensive relief efforts, opening his own gardens to the homeless, providing temporary shelter, and distributing food. He also initiated ambitious, grand-scale rebuilding plans, demanding wider streets, stone construction, and more regulated building practices. Yet, the persistent rumor, fueled perhaps by his perceived indifference to traditional Roman values, his artistic temperament, and his immediate seizure of vast, burnt areas for his own projects, began to circulate and fester in the traumatized city. And to deflect this growing suspicion and the widespread public anger, Nero sought a convenient scapegoat, an unpopular group upon whom he could pin the blame. His gaze fell upon a nascent and largely misunderstood religious group, the Christians. This small, emerging sect, with its peculiar customs, its communal gatherings, its refusal to worship the traditional Roman gods or acknowledge the divinity of the emperor, and its often misunderstood teachings, was already viewed with deep suspicion, even animosity, by many Romans, who saw them as practitioners of a dangerous superstition. Nero launched a brutal, horrifying persecution, the first state-sponsored persecution of Christians in the Roman Empire, setting a terrifying precedent for centuries to come. Imagine the terror of being a follower of this new faith, suddenly branded as an enemy of the state, accused of arson and hatred of humanity. Christians were rounded up en masse, subjected to unspeakable tortures to extract confessions, and executed in horrific public spectacles designed both to entertain the populace and to serve as a stark warning. Some were torn apart by wild beasts in the arenas, their cries echoing through the vast amphitheaters. Others were crucified in agonizing public displays, and most notoriously, some were coated in pitch, set alight, and used as living torches to illuminate Nero's gardens at night, a chilling tableau of suffering and imperial cruelty. This period of intense suffering for the early Christian community would leave an indelible mark on their collective memory, solidifying Nero's reputation as a monstrous tyrant in their tradition, a beast of the apocalypse. As the years passed, Nero's paranoia deepened, consuming him more thoroughly. He became increasingly suspicious of perceived threats to his rule, leading to a series of purges. and forced suicides among the Roman aristocracy, members of his own family, and even his former mentors. The Pisonian conspiracy of 65 CE, a widespread plot involving senators, knights, and military officers to overthrow him, was brutally suppressed. This conspiracy, though it failed, amplified Nero's distrust and led to a chilling wave of executions. Seneca, his revered teacher, was accused of involvement and, despite his protestations of innocence, was compelled to take his own life. The poignant description of his calm, philosophical end, opening his veins while discussing Stoicism with his friends, stands in stark contrast to the tyrant who ordered it. The renowned satirist Petronius, known as the arbiter of elegance, was also forced to commit suicide, though he chose to do so in a leisurely manner, breaking his veins, bandaging them, dining, conversing, and listening to music, ensuring his death was as refined as his life, all while leaving a scathing critique of Nero in his will. Imagine the chilling atmosphere of the imperial court, where a single ill-considered word, a whispered rumor, or even a fleeting look of disapproval could lead to ruin, exile, or death. Informers were everywhere, eager to gain favor by denouncing others. The constant fear would have permeated every aspect of elite life. The empire, though outwardly vast and powerful, was internally fractured by this climate of fear and distrust, emanating directly from the very top. Nero's lavish spending, particularly on his colossal Domus Aurea, the Golden House, further fueled public resentment and drained the imperial coffers, built on the scorched earth of the fire-ravaged city. This truly extravagant palace was a monument to his megalomania and artistic vision. Imagine a sprawling complex that covered a vast area, incorporating not just buildings, but vineyards, pastures, an artificial lake, and a colossal 120-foot-tall bronze statue of Nero, himself depicted as the sun god Helios. Its interiors were legendary for their opulence, adorned with precious stones, ivory, mother of pearl, and golden frescoes, including the famous rotating dining room ceiling that showered guests with flowers and perfumes. While undeniably a magnificent architectural and artistic feat, its construction was seen by many as a symbol of Nero's self-indulgence, his disregard for the suffering of his people, and his appropriation of land that should have been used for public housing. The public muttered about the emperor, effectively claiming Rome as his own living room. As the years of his reign dragged on, marked by a succession of scandalous marriages, public humiliations of the Senate, and increasingly erratic decisions, Nero's support base began to crumble. The constant demands on the treasury, the executions, and his continued artistic obsessions at the expense of serious governance alienated vast swaths of the Roman elite and even the common populace. Ultimately, a series of revolts erupted in the provinces, led by powerful, disaffected governors and generals who sensed weakness and opportunity. Gaius Julius Vindex in Gaul initiated the first major rebellion, followed quickly by Servius Sulpicius Galba in Hispania, who gathered significant support. The legions, weary of Nero's erratic behavior, his tyrannical purges, and the constant instability, began to declare against him. As military support dwindled and key figures defected, even his own Praetorian Guard, his elite personal protectors, abandoned him, swayed by promises of reward from the rebellious generals. The once unquestionable loyalty of the legions, the very foundation of imperial power, had dissolved. faced with an inevitable and humiliating public execution, declared a public enemy by the Senate, and with no allies left, Nero fled Rome in the dead of night. Accompanied by a few remaining loyal freedmen, he sought refuge in a villa belonging to one of them, outside the city. Imagine his final moments, isolated, desperate, hearing the approaching hoofbeats of the cavalry sent to capture him. He hesitated, purportedly considering various methods of suicide, even practicing a dramatic speech for his death. Finally, with the aid of his loyal secretary, Epaphroditus, who guided the dagger into his throat, Nero took his own life, reportedly uttering the famous, deeply melancholic, and self-aggrandizing words, Qualis, artifex perio. What an artist dies in me. A final, poignant, and utterly characteristic reflection of his self-perception, even in the face of utter defeat. His death on June 9, 68 CE, marked the abrupt and violent end of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, the lineage of Augustus himself, and plunged Rome into a turbulent and bloody period known as the Year of the Four Emperors. This chaotic year saw a rapid succession of military strongmen seize and lose the throne, a stark reminder of how fragile the fabric of power could be, even for an empire as mighty and seemingly stable as Rome. The fiery end of Nero's reign was a tumultuous, complex chapter, a narrative of unchecked ambition, artistic self-delusion, chilling cruelty, and the tragic consequences of absolute power, corrupted absolutely. His legacy remains a dark, fascinating, and debated corner of Roman history. From the grand and often grim narratives of emperors and legions, we now journey to a place where history was not merely recorded in scrolls or etched in stone, but dramatically, almost miraculously, preserved. Our destination is a city once vibrant with daily life, situated on the Bay of Naples, a jewel of Roman Campania, overshadowed by the seemingly benevolent, yet ultimately destructive, presence of Mount Vesuvius. We speak, of course, of Pompeii, a city not truly lost, but rather profoundly frozen in time by one of history's most sudden and devastating natural phenomena. For nearly 17 centuries, Pompeii lay buried beneath a suffocating blanket of volcanic ash and pumice, its existence all but forgotten to the world above. Its name lingered only in obscure historical texts, a vague memory of a town near a mountain that erupted long ago. Farmers tilled the rich, volcanic soil above, unknowingly walking over an entire civilization preserved beneath their feet. Its precise location remained a mystery until its fortuitous rediscovery in the late 16th century, and more significant, systematic excavations began in the mid-18th century. Before that fateful day, Pompeii was a prosperous regional center, a bustling port town, with a population perhaps reaching 20,000 or more. It was a place of diverse inhabitants, wealthy merchants, skilled artisans, hard-working laborers, and a significant enslaved population. They went about their daily lives with the universal concerns of humanity, commerce, family, religion, entertainment, and the mundane routines of existence, utterly oblivious to the immense geological power simmering beneath their feet, the quiet giant of Vesuvius. Then, on a seemingly ordinary day, likely in the late summer or early autumn of 79 CE, the long-dormant volcano, Vesuvius, awoke with cataclysmic fury. The eruption was not a simple, slow flow of lava, allowing ample time for escape. Instead, it was a terrifying and swift sequence of events, a Plinian eruption of immense power. First, A colossal column of ash, rock, and gas erupted skyward, reaching many miles into the stratosphere, obscuring the sun and plunging the entire region into an eerie, suffocating twilight. Imagine the sheer terror as the sky turned from clear blue to an ominous, churning black, the air growing thick and hot with falling debris, and the ground trembling violently beneath your feet with a continuous, low rumble. The initial eruption could have lasted for hours, raining down pumice and small stones, which began to accumulate rapidly, collapsing roofs and burying streets. Many inhabitants, gripped by panic and perhaps remembering a smaller earthquake 17 years prior that had damaged the city, attempted to flee. They rushed towards the gates, trying to escape the rain of pumice. But others, perhaps hoping the worst would pass, or too infirm to move quickly, sought shelter in their homes, beneath sturdy porticos, within cellars, or in public buildings, clutching their most precious possessions. But Vesuvius was relentless. Over the course of the day and into the next morning, successive, even more deadly, waves of pyroclastic flows descended the mountain slopes. These were not slow-moving lava. They were superheated clouds of volcanic gas, fine ash, and rock fragments, surging forward at immense speeds, perhaps hundreds of miles per hour, reaching temperatures of several hundred degrees Celsius. These flows were the ultimate destroyers, instantly incinerating anything in their path, suffocating and preserving their victims in an agonizing yet ultimately swift death. Imagine the sudden, overwhelming heat, a wall of superheated air instantly searing the lungs, collapsing the body in a moment, turning flesh to vapor and bone to fragile dust. The fine ash, pervasive and suffocating, would then settle rapidly, hardening around every surface, encapsulating the minutiae of life in exquisite, tragic detail. The city, its people, its animals, its very air were encapsulated, entombed, creating an unparalleled archaeological site, a time capsule of unprecedented fidelity. It is these casts of victims that perhaps offer the most poignant and haunting connection to Pompeii's last moments, creating an almost unbearable intimacy with the distant past. During early excavations in the mid-19th century, archaeologists, particularly Giuseppe Fiorelli, observed something peculiar. Voids, or empty spaces, within the hardened layers of volcanic ash, often containing human skeletal remains. He brilliantly deduced that these were impressions left by the bodies of the victims, which had decomposed over centuries within the solidified ash. Fiorelli pioneered a groundbreaking technique of pouring liquid plaster into these voids. The result was astonishing. Perfectly detailed casts of individuals, captured in their final, agonizing moments, their expressions of terror, pain, or resignation etched forever. Imagine looking upon these figures, the contorted features, the hands raised in futile defense against the searing heat, the expressions of despair or shock. One might see a mother shielding her child with her body, a family huddled together in a desperate embrace, a dog curled up in terror, or a solitary figure huddled against a wall, his hand raised to his face. These are not merely artifacts to be catalogued. They are silent, eloquent witnesses to a sudden, violent end. They convey the raw, undeniable humanity of the victims, bypassing the intellectual distance of historical text and connecting us directly to their suffering and their last breath. The posture, the tension in the limbs, the way clothing might have fallen, the very folds of fabric, all are preserved, allowing us a chilling yet deeply moving glimpse into individual tragedies, making the abstract concept of a distant disaster agonizingly real. The sight of these casts often evokes a profound sense of empathy, a recognition of shared human vulnerability across millennia. Beyond these haunting human figures, Pompeii offers an extraordinary, almost unparalleled window into Roman daily life, as the layers of ash and pumice were meticulously and systematically removed by generations of archaeologists. A city emerged, almost perfectly preserved, from its vibrant frescoes and intricate mosaics to its humble bakeries, bustling taverns, and crowded laundries. It is a snapshot, frozen in mid-sentence, revealing aspects of Roman existence that written texts often gloss over. Walk, in your mind's eye, through its narrow, cobbled streets. Notice the deep, undeniable ruts worn into the volcanic stone by countless chariot wheels, a testament to the city's constant activity and commerce. See the raised stepping stones, placed at regular intervals, allowing pedestrians to cross the street without treading in the accumulated refuse or overflowing rainwater from fountains and public latrines. Imagine the sounds that would have filled these streets: the clatter of chariot wheels, the shouts of vendors hawking their wares, the murmur of conversation from passers-by, the distant clamor from the forum, the heart of public life where legal disputes were settled, political speeches delivered, and citizens gathered for news and gossip. Even the vivid political slogans, scrawled as graffiti on public walls, still jump out, endorsing candidates for local office with a surprising immediacy. Step inside a Roman bakery, one of the 30 or so identified within the city. Its large, conical millstones, often operated by sturdy donkeys whose skeletons have been found tethered nearby, still sit in place, bags of grain perhaps still waiting to be ground. Loaves of bread, carbonized but perfectly formed and surprisingly preserved, have been found in the brick ovens, some still bearing the baker's stamp, ready for sale. Imagine the warm, yeasty smell of freshly baked bread, the constant hum of activity, the warmth emanating from the brick ovens, the shouts of apprentices. Consider the magnificent bathhouses, the forum baths, the Stabian baths, the central baths, vast public complexes that were not merely places for hygiene, but vital social hubs, open to rich and poor alike. See the elaborate system of hypocausts, the ingenious underfloor heating that warmed the various rooms, allowing warm air to circulate beneath the floors and within the walls. Marvel at the intricate frescoes depicting mythological scenes, athletic contests, or everyday life that decorated the walls, and the exquisite mosaics on the floors. Imagine the sounds of splashing water, the murmur of conversation, the calls of masseurs, the energetic clinking of strigils scraping olive oil, and dirt from skin, the laughter and chatter that filled these communal spaces. As Romans relaxed, exercised, socialized, and conducted business, Pompeii also reveals the more intimate and sometimes surprising details of Roman customs, beliefs, and even their darker undercurrents. Frescoes vibrant even after millennia, depicting scenes from mythology, daily life, erotic encounters, or portraits of individuals adorn the walls of private homes and public buildings, offering invaluable insights into their aesthetics, religious sensibilities, and moral values. The famous House of the Veti, for instance, provides a stunning example of domestic art and architecture. From its charming mythological friezes to its more explicit imagery. Graffiti, scrawled on walls throughout the city, provides an incredibly rich, unfiltered, and often humorous glimpse into the concerns and voices of ordinary citizens. These weren't official pronouncements, but spontaneous expressions. Declarations of love. Lucius is madly in love with Ida. Political endorsements. Casual insults. Lines of poetry. Even simple advertisements for gladiator fights or wrestling matches. These ephemeral inscriptions offer a direct human touch, allowing us to hear the literal voices of Pompeians, bypassing the formal narratives of official history. They reveal anxieties, desires, rivalries, and moments of simple human connection that resonate across the centuries. Unexpected discoveries have continued to shed light on aspects of Roman life that might otherwise remain obscure. The intricate plumbing systems, for example, reveal a sophisticated understanding of water management, with lead pipes delivering fresh water from an aqueduct to public fountains, bathhouses, and even private homes of the wealthy. The elaborate street shrines dedicated to Lares and other deities found at almost every street corner speak of a deep-seated religiosity woven into the very fabric of their daily existence, where divine favor was sought for mundane activities. Even the remains of numerous fast food stalls, the Thermopolia complete with their distinctive L-shaped counters, large sunken jars for holding hot food and drinks, and often decorated with cheerful frescoes, indicate a bustling urban culture with ready access to prepared meals. Imagine stopping for a quick snack of hot lentils, some wine, or perhaps even fried fish, much like a modern takeaway. This shows a city that catered to a diverse population, many of whom did not have kitchens in their small apartments. The presence of gladiatorial barracks and amphitheaters also speaks volumes about their entertainment. Imagine the roar of the crowd, the clash of swords, the scent of sweat and blood, as gladiators fought, often to the death, for public spectacle. The graffiti often lists the names of favorite gladiators, revealing their popularity. Even the details of their domestic arrangements, from dining habits to bedroom configurations, are illuminated by the archaeological record. And what of their humor? While not always immediately evident, traces of wit and jest can be found in the more playful frescoes, the occasional satirical graffiti, and even the caricatures of politicians or neighbors. Life in Pompeii, despite its eventual tragic end, was full of the universal human experiences of love, laughter, work, worship, and the simple joys and sorrows of ordinary existence. The preservation of Pompeii is a profound paradox, a horrific, instantaneous catastrophe that yielded an extraordinary, unparalleled archaeological treasure. It allows us to walk directly into the past, to touch the very stones that Romans touched, to gaze upon the faces of those who lived and died in that fateful year. It is a silent city, yet it speaks volumes about the rhythms of Roman life, the ingenuity of their engineers, the beauty of their art, the complexity of their social structures, and the sudden, brutal fragility of human existence in the face of nature's awesome power. The air, even today, in the quiet moments between the footsteps of modern visitors, seems to hold the faint echo of its last, vibrant breath, a constant reminder of a world frozen, yet eternally alive beneath the ash. The layers of time have been peeled back, revealing secrets that continue to fascinate and inform us about the daily heartbeat of an empire. Having journeyed through the harsh realities of military life, and the tragically preserved echoes of a bustling city. We now turn our attention to the pinnacle of Roman society, the elite. Our final destination is the Roman villa, a sprawling complex that served not only as a grand residence, but also as a powerful statement of wealth, status, and philosophical inclination. This was a world far removed from the dust and grime of the common streets, a realm of cultivated leisure, intellectual pursuits, and a complex social hierarchy that underpinned its very existence. Imagine yourself not as a weary traveler or a frightened citizen, but as an honored guest, perhaps a visiting scholar or a distant relative, stepping through the ornate gates of a magnificent villa. Picture it nestled on a sun-drenched hillside, overlooking the sparkling blue of the Bay of Naples, its white marble gleaming under the Mediterranean sun, or perhaps deep within the rolling verdant hills of Tuscany, surrounded by ancient olive groves and vineyards. The very air here feels different, softer, perfumed with the scent of blossoming citrus trees, the delicate fragrance of roses from meticulously manicured gardens, and the faint, enticing aroma of exotic spices wafting from the distant kitchens. The harsh cacophony of the city has faded, replaced by the gentle murmur of fountains, the distant hum of bees, and the rustling of leaves in a light breeze. The architecture itself speaks volumes of wealth and refined taste. Forget the cramped, multi-story insulae of the bustling city, where common Romans lived cheek by jowl. Here, space is the ultimate luxury, expressed in grand proportions and sprawling layouts. You would first enter through the fauces, a grand entrance hall, often flanked by impressive columns or statues, leading you into the cool, shadowed embrace of the atrium. This wasn't merely a room, it was the ceremonial heart of the house, an open-air central courtyard. Sunlight streams down from the compluvium, the large opening in the roof, illuminating the impluvium, a shallow basin beneath, collecting rainwater. The soft, rhythmic splashing of the water into the pool would be one of the constant, calming sounds of the villa, a refreshing counterpoint to the heat outside. Surrounding the atrium, one would find the most public-facing rooms, the tablinum, often an office where the master conducted business, and various cubicula for family and favored guests. These rooms, though private, were often decorated to impress, their walls adorned with vibrant frescoes depicting mythological scenes, heroic narratives, or elegant landscapes designed to open up the space. The floors, cool and smooth underfoot, might be polished marble or feature intricate mosaic patterns, each tiny colored stone painstakingly placed to create stunning images of sea creatures, geometric designs, or even humorous caricatures. Beyond the atrium, and often connected by a wide passage, lay the peristyle. This was often the true architectural and aesthetic masterpiece of the villa, an even larger, colonnaded garden courtyard, open to the sky. Imagine the stately rhythm of the columns, perhaps made of local stone or imported marble, framing a central garden. This garden would be a carefully curated miniature paradise, not wild and untamed, but an ordered arrangement of fragrant herbs, exotic plants brought from distant lands, and vibrant seasonal flowers. Sculptures, perhaps copies of famous Greek masterpieces, would be strategically placed among the foliage, and the gentle murmur of multiple fountains would provide a constant, soothing soundtrack. This was a place for quiet contemplation, for leisurely strolls in the cool shade, for philosophical discussions, or simply for escaping the intense midday heat. The air here would be thick with the sweet scent of jasmine or honeysuckle, carried on the gentle breezes. The villa was a self-contained world. Beyond the residential quarters, one would find various functional areas, vast kitchens, their hearths constantly alight, producing complex meals, storehouses for grain, wine, and olive oil, workshops where skilled slaves produced goods, and extensive bath complexes, often rivaling public baths in their grandeur. These private baths, complete with frigidarium, tepidarium, and caldarium, with their elaborate hypocaust heating systems, were essential for daily rituals of hygiene, relaxation, and social interaction. Imagine the warm, humid air, the scent of scented oils, and the soft sounds of water splashing and bodies being massaged. The heart of the villa's social life, particularly in the evening, revolved around the elaborate banquets known as convivia. These were far more than simple meals. They were meticulously planned social performances, designed to impress guests, forge alliances, display wealth, and facilitate intellectual discourse. Imagine arriving as dusk settles, the villa subtly illuminated by flickering oil lamps and strategically placed braziers, casting long, dancing shadows on the frescoed walls. You would be escorted to the triclinium, the dining room, where guests reclined on luxurious, cushioned couches, often arranged in a U-shape around a low, exquisitely carved table. The atmosphere would be one of cultivated indulgence. The air would be thick with the intoxicating aromas of exotic dishes, roasted pheasant, delicate fish from the Bay of Naples, oysters, rich stews seasoned with imported spices, and a dazzling array of fresh fruits, cheeses, and sweet pastries. Each dish would be a work of culinary art, prepared by highly skilled enslaved chefs. Accompanying the food would be copious amounts of wine, often mixed with water and sometimes spiced with honey or herbs. Specialized wine stewards, often Greek slaves, would ensure goblets were never empty. The meal would progress through several courses, often introduced with great flourish and theatricality. But beyond the food, the entertainment was crucial. Musicians might play haunting melodies on lyres, or lively tunes on flutes. Dancers, sometimes from exotic lands, might perform intricate routines. Poets might recite their latest verses, or a storyteller might captivate the audience with ancient myths or recent historical anecdotes. The conversation would flow freely, often shifting from light gossip about Roman politics or the latest gladiatorial games to more profound subjects, a careful balance of the trivial and the profound. These dinners were prime opportunities for Roman elites to display their wit, their learning, their social standing, and their network of influential friends. Imagine the hushed conversations, the bursts of laughter, the delicate clinking of goblets, and the almost imperceptible movements of enslaved attendants, ensuring every need of the guests was met with silent efficiency. This brings us to a crucial, yet often uncomfortable, aspect of Roman elite life: the pervasive and indispensable role of slaves and freedmen. The opulent lifestyle of the Roman aristocracy was not merely enabled, but fundamentally built upon the vast, unseen labor of an enormous enslaved population. Within a villa, slaves performed every conceivable task, from the most menial to highly specialized and intellectual roles. Imagine the sheer number of individuals whose lives were entirely dictated by the demands of their owners. Some were servy, ordinary domestic slaves who cooked, cleaned, served at table, dressed their masters and mistresses, attended to their personal hygiene, and tended to their children. These roles, while demanding, often put them in close proximity to the family, allowing for some development of personal relationships, though their status as property remained paramount. Others were servi rustici, agricultural slaves who toiled in the vast fields, vineyards, and olive groves that generated the villa owner's immense wealth, often under far more brutal and physically punishing conditions. The sounds of their work, though distant from the villa's core, would have been a constant backdrop to daily life. The creak of ox carts, the rhythmic clang of the shouts of overseers. But Roman slavery was not monolithic. Many slaves possessed highly specialized skills. There were librari who copied texts, medici who attended to ailments, architecti who designed buildings, pictori who adorned walls, and musici and saltators who provided entertainment. These skilled slaves, often from educated Greek backgrounds, were highly valued assets. Imagine the silent, efficient movements of these individuals, their talents put entirely at the service of their owners, their every action a testament to their master's wealth and influence. While some domestic or skilled slaves might have experienced a degree of comfort or even developed close bonds with their owners, their fundamental lack of freedom, their status as chattel, meant their lives could be instantly disrupted or ended at their master's whim. The potential for brutal punishment, sale, or separation from family was an ever-present shadow. Freedmen, former slaves who had gained their liberty, occupied a unique and often powerful interstitial position in Roman society. Many remained closely tied to their former owners as clientes, managing businesses, overseeing estates, acting as agents, or serving as personal assistants. Some freedmen amassed immense personal wealth and influence, sometimes even surpassing the fortunes of old aristocratic families, becoming prominent figures in commerce and banking. Imagine the complexities of their social integration. Despite their wealth, they often faced subtle and sometimes overt social prejudice from the established elite, who might view their origins with disdain. Yet their practical skills, business acumen, and loyalty could make them indispensable. Their stories offer a compelling narrative of social mobility within a rigid hierarchy, illustrating that even from the lowest rung, opportunity, however challenging, could sometimes be seized. The pursuit of leisure for the Roman elite was not merely a passive pastime. It was an active, cultivated art form, an essential component of their refined existence, meant to refresh both body and mind. Mornings might begin with a visit to the private palestra, a gymnasium for exercise, perhaps some wrestling, throwing the discus, or light running, followed by a thorough cleansing ritual in the villa's private bath complex. Imagine the sounds of splashing water, the scent of olive oil being applied and scraped off with a strigil, the relaxed murmur of conversation. Afternoons could involve a variety of pursuits, perhaps a hunting expedition in the surrounding countryside, a grand affair involving horses, hounds, and numerous attendants, culminating in a feast, or attendance at private theatrical performances staged within the villa, or at small local theaters. Many hours would be spent in the villa's extensive libraries, poring over scrolls of Greek and Latin literature, history, and philosophy. Imagine the quiet rustle of parchment, the scent of old papyrus, and the focused concentration of a mind immersed in ancient wisdom, dictating letters to a skilled librarius, corresponding with friends and political allies across the empire, was also a common and time-consuming activity, but often the most cherished form of leisure. was simply relaxing in the cool shade of the peristyle, listening to the gentle murmur of fountains, surrounded by beauty, allowing the mind to wander and contemplate. These periods of carefully managed leisure were essential for mental rejuvenation, for fostering intellectual growth, and for cultivating the osium, a Roman concept of productive leisure distinct from idle laziness. And it was during these moments of cultivated leisure, particularly during the lengthy banquets or in quiet discussions within the peristyle or library, that philosophical discussions often took center stage. The Roman elite were deeply influenced by Greek philosophy, integrating its principles into their lives, often seeing it as a guide for ethical conduct and a source of wisdom. Stoicism, with its emphasis on virtue, reason, and self-control, was particularly popular among the Roman aristocracy, offering a framework for navigating political upheaval and personal adversity. Epicureanism, focusing on the pursuit of moderate pleasure and tranquility of mind, also found adherents. Plato's dialogues, exploring concepts of justice, ideal states, and the nature of reality, were widely read and debated. Imagine prominent figures like Seneca, the famed Stoic philosopher and Nero's tutor, or the statesman Cicero, engaging in deep, sometimes passionate, debates about the nature of virtue, the pursuit of happiness, the role of fate in human affairs, the responsibilities of a good citizen, or the definition of a just society. These were not abstract academic exercises confined to lecture halls. They were lively, sometimes heated, exchanges that directly shaped their worldview, informed their political decisions, and provided comfort and guidance in times of personal crisis or imperial turmoil. The villa, therefore, was not just a grand home. It was a sanctuary for intellectual pursuit, a place where the mind could be sharpened, where ethical dilemmas could be explored, and where the spirit could be elevated through reasoned discourse. Imagine the quiet intensity of these conversations, the subtle interplay of wit and wisdom, the shared pursuit of understanding their voices, echoing softly in the grand, cool rooms of the villa, often with a view of the distant, shimmering sea. The life in a Roman villa was a world of stark contrasts, exquisite beauty, built upon the often invisible foundation of forced labor, intellectual refinement intertwined with casual cruelty, and serene leisure alongside simmering political intrigue. It was a carefully constructed world of privilege, reflecting the very essence of Roman power, its complex social fabric, and the enduring human desire for both material comfort and intellectual stimulation. As the evening draws to a close in this imagined villa, the sounds of distant laughter from the triclinium, the soft strains of a lyre, and the low hum of philosophical conversation slowly recede, leaving behind only the gentle quiet of history, a silent testament to a world of both grandeur and profound human cost. And so, our long journey through ancient Rome draws to a close. We began with the grueling endurance of the Roman legionary, understanding the sheer physical and mental fortitude required to forge and maintain an empire that shaped the very course of Western civilization. We then ascended to the dizzying and ultimately tragic heights of imperial power, observing the dramatic fall of Emperor Nero, a tale of artistic ambition, megalomania, and chilling paranoia, reminding us of the corrupting nature of absolute authority. From there, we descended into the ash-preserved stillness of Pompeii, a city frozen in its final moments by a cataclysmic natural event, offering an unparalleled, poignant window into the everyday lives and sudden deaths of its inhabitants, allowing us to almost touch the past. And finally, we found ourselves amidst the luxurious refinement of a Roman villa, exploring the opulent lives of the elite, sustained by a complex social structure and enriched by philosophical discourse. A world of both beauty and profound dependence. Each segment has offered a different facet of a vast and complex civilization, a testament to the enduring power of human endeavor, ingenuity, and, at times, its inherent cruelties. We have wandered through these ancient echoes, allowing the sounds, sights, and even the imagined smells of a long-gone world to wash over us without rush, without demand. We have sought not to excite, but to simply present, allowing your mind to explore and ponder at its own tranquil pace. As we gently return to the comfort of your present moment, take a breath, feel the softness of your own surroundings, the quiet rhythm of your own life. The legions have long since marched into history, their disciplined footsteps echoing only in our imaginations. The emperor's voices are but whispers on the wind. The ash of Vesuvius has settled into a quiet monument, and the grand villas, though some stand in silent ruin, continue to tell their tales. Yet the stories, the details, the very human experiences of those who came before us continue to resonate, reminding us of the timeless threads that connect all generations. The struggles, the triumphs, the mundane moments, the grand ambitions, they all contribute to the rich tapestry of human history. May these quiet whispers of the past usher you towards a restful and peaceful night. Sleep well, knowing that history, in its quiet, unassuming way, is always there, waiting to be explored, a constant, comforting presence in the grand, unfolding narrative of time. Good night.